little medication, maybe some alcohol, who knows?
You're live.
I am?
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I swear to God he does this on purpose.
Yeah, they heard the alcohol and.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those days. Oh my goodness. Everybody's here today. Thank goodness. For a few minutes there, we didn't think we were going to be able to go live. We were having we were having some issues of the technical variety. Technology is a wonderful thing when it works. And I've had more than my fair share of technological issues this week. So
Par for the course.
it is par for the course. And I think that's 3. I think I'm good now. I hope everybody's having a great Saturday. Nope. Maze is letting you know she's ready for her close-up.
Yep.
Yeah. It's an absolutely stellar fall day. We are expecting some rain later this afternoon, but today, absolutely beautiful. The sun is shining. It's gorgeous. Yes, it's starting to cloud over, but and the colors are really starting to come into full flavor at this point. In the next week or so, it's going to be extraordinary. It's already very pretty, but it's going to be extraordinary in the next few days. So I'm really looking forward to that. I love this time of year. And because I know what's coming. I know it's coming. I love winter too, especially here. When we get oodles and oodles of snow, I absolutely love it. And speaking of snow, today we're painting Let It Snow, which is, he's a cute little snowman. I just wanted to do something simple and then focus on using stencils to create a lot of the elements that are going on in this piece. So it's a fun one. You don't need to have a ton of special stencils with it. And you can use what you have on hand just to see what kind of fun things you can create with it. So we're going to be doing Let It Snow. I've pulled a variety of stencils, just something to play with. And I've also managed to get my hands on a pile of Let It Snow stencils, the lettering stencils. And I sized this design so that you can actually use that stencil if you don't want to hand paint the lettering. So there's a variety of ways to finish off this piece and get a really cute result. But before we get started on that, I want to say hi to a few people. Obviously, I'm going to say hi to Miss Linda Safranco and her lovely mom, Mary. Linda is my right arm with my membership group. If it wasn't for her, I would not be able to find my butt with both hands. She is amazing. She keeps me on the straight and narrow, keeps me organized, and helps me keep everybody informed about what we're doing next. So big thank you, much love, and lots of hugs to my pal Linda. And big hugs and love sent out to Mary. She's watching in Florida. And I also wanted to say hi to a couple of special people. I got a box from Sandy Burton this week full of just the most amazing things. Obviously, she knows me rather well. She sent me a gorgeous book about the art of painting on porcelain. Phenomenal book. Information that she's collected over the years, that her mother had collected over the years. Absolutely phenomenal binder full of just the most amazing artwork on porcelain. So I wanted to take a few minutes to say thank you for that. Not to mention, she sent me a whole bunch of really creepy goodness as well. So there's some awesome Halloween tea towels, and I've got little ghost scissors and skulls, and I'm a happy camper. So I have a new set of salt and pepper shakers to add to my skull collection. So I'm a happy girl. Yes, I got salt and pepper shakers. They're awesome. And of course, I got to say thank you to friends and companies that support this channel, because they really do an amazing job. Decor, as always, phenomenal, provides me with everything I need, paint-wise, creative-wise, to do this every week. And Dynasty Brush, well, that's a foregone conclusion. I have more paintbrushes than God's got little liver pills. And there's Tombow USA. And then, of course, I have friends in this industry as well. Dear, dear friends. Sheila Landry at Sheila Landry Designs is absolutely phenomenal. And one of my besties, Miss Sandy McTeer. She's an incredible layer of support. She is always there, always got my back. She's awesome. And she stocks what I don't, which is a really great thing because if you need to get brushes, you can get them from Sandy or you can get them from the brush guys. And then there's the brush guys. The brush guys provide me with a lot of support too by giving coupon codes for everybody so that they can purchase discounted brushes at an even better discount. So they're awesome. So it behooves me to say thank you to all of them. And then, of course, to my best bud, Miss Deb. She is the genius behind all of my wood surfaces. She's been cutting so much stuff for me of late. And, my partner in crime. I'm going to call her that. So if you get a chance, don't forget to go and check out their websites at sandymctierdesigns.com, SheilaLandryDesigns.com, or TollPaintingDesigns.com, and of course my buddy Deb at PaintingWithDeb.com. So all of them are a huge support when it comes to things getting done on this channel. So lend them a little love. And having said that, let's talk about the giveaways for today. We have some awesome ones. So those little boxes, yes. They're not so little. They're getting a box. Yes. So there's a great little Create bag in there, and it's filled with goodies from Tombow and from Dynasty Brush, and of course from myself. And there's some other little goodies in there too. And one of the things that I've added to this box is some of my lip balm. I've been making lip balm and lotions for quite some time, so I added a little bit to it. They are made with 100% natural ingredients. There is an ingredients list included in the package, so everybody's getting one of those included. This one is to relieve cracked lips, to relieve dry, sore, allergies, and a variety of things. And they are made with beeswax, with shea butter, and coconut oil. And then the essential oils that I add are frankincense, geranium oil, and lavender oil. So there's one of those included in your box as well. And a whole bunch of other fun goodies that we always throw in there. So that is your giveaway for this week. We have 3 of them.
You have lip balm.
I have lip balm. It's quite nice. Feels good. I use it every day. You can even tint it and use it as lip gloss if you wanted to. Feel free.
Don't use acrylic paint.
Are you speaking from experience?
No. Just from common sense.
Common sense. Wow. Okay. On that note.
Somebody might stumble upon this video and
that's a
great idea.
Yeah, I could see it.
It is the internet.
It is the internet. All sorts of weird things happen on the internet. So I'm going to also take a minute to say hello to Shannon Riley. Hello, Shannon. And Brenda Owen. Hello, sweetie. And Connie Giesland. Hello from Ohio. Welcome, welcome. And Luann Stone and Debbie Marlowe. Hello, Debbie.
Sandy Barton did say you're welcome.
Oh, well, I know.
She popped in there.
Aw. I was just so tickled. I mean, I know I have some really strange likes and whatnot. I like skulls and things like that. So it was such a joy to open a box and find all of this scully goodness in it. It was great fun. And who else? Charmaine Bannister, hello. And I know I'm missing a whole bunch of people because this thing flies by. And Jill Cullimore, hello, Jill. And Robin R, hello. I do so sleep. Ish. Sometimes, a little bit here and there. Kinda.
She doesn't sleep, she waits.
I wait. No. Lorraine Turr. Good morning, Lorraine. Deb Pell, Sylvie Miller, and our beloved Lucy. The truth shall set you free. Yeah.
Yep.
That's Miss Lucy. All right, guys. Since Renee has to take Maze out today, and we have some fun holiday painting to do, if you guys are ready to get started on Let It Snow, so am I. It worked. Yay, it worked. Awesome.
Yay.
That's always good.
We're down a palette cam.
We are down a palette cam. It's the only thing we couldn't get working. So, I'm going to get you to grab me, the original. It's way over there on my desk instead of on the table where it should be.
Is there glitter on it?
No.
Okay.
I did not glitterify it yet.
Yeah.
Yet. So this is the little guy we're painting today. He's pretty simple. And he is a lot of fun. And as usual, I'm using a lot of different things. But I use my gel pen. I'm going to show you how to use stencils to do a variety of things. This one is just to create a little texture. One of the things you cannot see in the photograph about this little guy is the texture on his belly right here. And it's just, he's so fun. So we're going to paint our little snowman and a little bit of lettering and use some stencils, and we're just going to have a fun time painting these things. I'm a little obsessed with the snowflakes. I'll admit I'm loving the snowflakes. I love gluing stuff on. It's just oodles of fun. And I went with a slightly different color palette. Instead of going with a very traditional red, I had to use this tea berry. I love this color. It's just so fun. It's a nice bright punch. I love it. So this is the little guy that we're painting today. The stencil is this one. It's called Let It Snow. Jeez Louise. I love this one. It's a lot of fun. And it actually fits quite nicely. Let's face it, we're going to have the snowman overlap it a little bit. But if you are not up to hand painting the lettering, you can obviously use a stencil like this. And it does fit because I designed this little guy to fit around the stencil. So the other thing that we're using is some of the minis. I love mini stencils. Now, you guys know that we include a free mini stencil whenever we ship an order. We always put one in. And they vary. Sometimes they're snowflakes, sometimes they're flowers, hearts, you know, a variety of shapes. But we also have them in like these little things, little mini polka dot stencils, little knit stencils, mini check stencils. And we do have a set of 6 stencils like this. And it contains, of course, now I can't get it open. Hello. The little stencil sets contain a total of 6 stencils. There's 2 polka dot, 1/4 inch polka dot, and the 1/8 polka dot, a knit stencil, a 1/4 inch check, and a 1/8 check, and then a honeycomb stencil. So it's a great little set. You can use it for a variety of things, and it's ideal for small surfaces because you're not having to juggle a great big stencil to get it on there. So we have those available in sets, and we have a new 6-piece set coming. And I talked about that because I want to talk about this. This is what I store all of these little tiny stencils in. These are, they're called check file folders. You can get them at almost any office supply store. And they're excellent for holding smaller stencils. These little things get lost in drawers. They get lost. And I love having something that I can keep those smaller stencils in. And these work really, really well. Now, I store all of my smaller stencils like this. So I have a variety of them. So I have, obviously I've got Chris Hoy's smaller stencils. And this is what I store them in, is these check files. So I have these great little round stencils, other minis from other companies, these little stencils from Chris Hoy. They fit perfectly in these. And they work like a charm. I keep Sandy stencils, the ones that Sandy makes. I keep those in these fabulous little check files so they don't get damaged. They lay nice and flat. I have my journaling stencils. I keep them in one of these. And I have all of my mini stencils from the Stencil Studio. All of those in one. And then all of my Tim Holtz stencils are in one of these as well. They're the perfect size for these smaller format stencils. And it protects them so they're not getting damaged. They lay flat. You don't get little dings and whatnot in them. And it keeps them under control because these little ones get lost so easy. So that's what I use to store them. I get asked about how I store stencils. And these little check files for these smaller format stencils are fantastic. Keeps them neat and tidy, and it protects them at the same time. The larger stencils going into these sizes, the 6x6s, and 5x7s and things like that, the smaller or mid-size stencils, I keep those in a card keeper that I got at Michael's. And it's a fantastic tool for storing stencils. So this is what it looks like. Let me switch the camera for just a second. So this is what it looks like. It's just a card keeper, like a small file folder. They're not very big. It has dividers in it so that you can label each one so that you know where your stencils are kept. It's a fantastic tool. So anything smaller, 5x7, 6x6, that's what I keep them in. I have a binder for larger stencils, big one that has slips. What was it? Is that an Amazon find? You can find these on Amazon, but most office supply stores carry them. It's called a check file. That's what it's called, check file. Absolutely phenomenal way to store these little mini stencils so that you know where they are. And the card keeper is from Michael's. I think they're $19 Canadian. They're not expensive, work like a hot damn. They're perfect size for those collage stencils for 5x7s, the smaller format stencils. And the 8.5x11 I store in binders. Absolutely phenomenal storage system. Then you always know where everything is. So here's my base coat. I've got 2 coats of deep midnight blue. I like this one. It's kind of smoky, kind of hazy, got a grayish tone to it. I really like this blue. So this one actually is an older color, but I love the tone of it. It was one that I've had for ages and had never really thought about using until just the last year or so. And I love how it looks. I love this grayish undertone. So I've got 2 coats of that on there. We're going to stencil the background. Now I chose this one. This is the swirly background. It's M280. This one, I just think this is such a pretty stencil. It really is such a pretty stencil. So I like to take the stencil off the surface just slightly. But in this particular case, the stencil is designed to do that all by itself. So I'm going to position my stencil and I'm going to use, hopefully I got a dry stencil brush here. I'm going to use, I've got a larger stencil brush today. We're going to use a little bit of cobblestone, just like this, and we're going to use it very sparingly. I don't want to have this fully opaque finish. And I'm just watching the chat there for a second. So I've got a little bit of cobblestone. I'm going to blot that a little bit. And it is a light application, almost dry brush. I don't want this to be fully opaque. So circular fashion, change directions frequently. We want this pattern to be a little more subtle. So I'm not using a ton of color. Oops, there we go. And I like this pattern. Just reminded me of wind. That's why I chose this one. But any swirly pattern stencil, another one would be this one here, or the Tim Holtz version of that would work beautifully. You just want something that's going to create sort of a swirly, random pattern in the background. So nice light touch. You don't have to work hard to do this. Here we go. I'm not looking for an absolutely perfect finish either. I want this to be fairly subtle. On that dark background, it's going to show anyway. Now, the neat thing about this stencil is that it actually lines up side to side. If I can find, there we go. It lines up perfectly. The stencil was designed to do this. So if you're looking for this one, this swirly one is on my website. It's M280. It's also on Sandy's website. Sandy and I, God, it's been like 8 years already. I can't believe it. Sandy and I put our heads together about 8 years ago and decided we really wanted to create a line of stencils together, that we thought we would have fun. So the two of us put our considerable brain power together, and we came up with M Square. And we wanted stencils that were going to be multifaceted, things you could use for almost anything. For mixed media, for general craft, for decorative painting, for home decor. We wanted it to be very flexible. And so the two of us put our brains together, and we continue to put our brains together every time we add it. We started out with 12 designs, and now we have over 80. And we're adding more. So we have a lot of fun doing this. And she's brilliant. She's an absolutely brilliant person to work with. Her and I have a lot of fun together. So there we go. Look at that. So yeah, you can see the line. That's okay. And this is where I have I always seem to stall out a little bit. Is trying to find, there it is. Okay. Nope, that's not it. Is connecting things. This is where, oh, there it is. Okay. I knew it was there somewhere. I had one of those moments. Ooh. There we are. I got a little too much paint on my brush, but that's okay. And then it's always surprising to me how easily, there we go, that'll do. So I'm going to put that over there. Now I know that this looks very patchy at the moment, and that's okay because we're going to use one of these to fix that. So when I'm sanding things, I always sand them in one direction. Comme ça. And I sand them that way because I want to create sort of a distressed appearance. I want to wear through the pattern a little bit. So I'm sanding in one direction. And that way, if there's any flaws, any pattern that's creating or scratches, the pattern falls into that one direction. There we go. So we're going to wipe this off. And you can see this pattern becomes very indistinct. We're not looking for a solid, clear pattern. So I'm going to grab a little of our base color, which is that deep midnight blue. Just a little, you don't need a ton of it. And we're going to thin that out with a little bit of water. And then we're going to brush a coat of that over top of everything. I love that little bit of blue. It just subdues things a little bit, softens them, and sets them back a bit. Because we're creating a background, not the focal point. We just want a little bit of movement back there, just to give it some interest. Otherwise, it's just a flat black or flat blue background with very little interest. Hi, Bev. Bev's just checking in. Oh, yay! There we go. So the next color we're going to use is this one. It's Prussian blue. I love Prussian blue. Whoops. Oh my goodness. I think my Prussian blue needs a good shake. Hi, Norma. Thank you for calling me sweet. Some days I'm not so sweet. So I'm going to use a nice big angled shader. We're going to put a nice shadow around the outside edge of this. I love Prussian blue. It's such a rich blue, and because we're working with blue, we can put a nice dark float all the way around the outside. Like that. So that little float gives us that nice dark outline. Don't really need it at the bottom, but I'll put it there anyway. And then I'm going to dry that real quick, and we're going to deepen that with a little bit of asphaltum. You knew I was going to use asphaltum. I love snowmen. I have a collection of snowmen. They come out during the holidays. One of my favorites is actually from Miss Karen Jones in here. Gave it to me for Christmas a few years ago, just before the pandemic. And his pride of place sits in my entryway. I just love him. He's so stinking cute. And I have a table lamp painted by Miss Deb, my partner in crime, that I also absolutely love. I have a thing for snowies. My snowies are okay. My snowies are kind of cute. But Deb does like the most awesome snowies. I have several of her snowies because I really love them. I just think they're so cute. So, just to deepen that float, I put a little bit of asphaltum over it. I know. I love asphaltum. So, I'm going to dry that as well. I like that darker edge. I don't know. It works. Like that little bit of deep dark. I like the distressed. I like that things are imperfect, that there's no ideal positioning. I like those irregularities. Yeah, Sue, I know. Everybody would be shocked if I didn't use asphaltum. Have I done a poinsettia design? I have, and I'm actually working on another one right now. Last year I did one on a blue background with a white poinsettia, and I'm thinking this one's going to be pink. I love points. Well, The poinsettia, I think, is a beautiful flower. I just don't like painting them. So every once in a while, I force myself to. I think because I struggle with it. I struggle with poinsettia. I have no idea why, but I do. So we have nice little distressed background. To me, this looks like old fabric. I really like that kind of look. Yeah, Charmaine, I do like the white one. So I like that this has that sort of distressed fabricy look to it. That appeals to me in a lot of levels. So I have my line drawing, and the first thing you're going to notice is that the line drawing does not fit perfectly within the shape of the tag. But it is the size that I used. So I line mine up, center it, and then I line it up right along the bottom. And then we're going to secure that with a piece of painter's tape. I don't like my line drawings to shift. And I don't use tracing paper because I don't like tracing paper. So I'm going to tape that into place. Now, on this one, I use that 6x10 jumbo tag for this. And it works really, really well. I have a limited number of these left, so I didn't want to use one for today's class. So I opted for this one, which is 6x10, but it's a tombstone. So it's got the arch at the top, but it's still ample size for this project. So there we go. I've got that taped in place. And I'm going to use a piece of white graphite paper and my red gel pen. I think he's cute. Now, stencils come in handy for a variety of things. Not just, creating pretty patterns or whatnot on things. They come in handy for a variety of things. And I'm going to show you one of those things in just a minute. Now, I'm going to trace my snowman on. Ordinarily, when I put a hat on a snowman, it's always a toque. I'm Canadian, so, it's always a toque. This time around, I chose a top hat because, I don't know, classic snowman has a top hat, right? There is, I've been going through trend reports and whatnot. It's that time of year. New colors are coming out for paint companies all over the place. This is the time of year when you start seeing all of those trend reports. Bears put out a new color. Benjamin Moore has a new colors. Or everyone gives you their opinion about what the color of the year is going to be, etc. It's that time of year. I have, oh crud, it shifted. My tape didn't stick. So I have to put it back. Which means I have to try and line it up. There we go. So we have so many things popping up in the trend reports of late. And one of the things that I've noticed, most especially, is that nostalgia, things of a nostalgic bent seem to be the thing this year. So even for Christmas, things all have that sort of vintage, nostalgic, old time look to them. The more elegant things in the trends tend to be things of Art Nouveau and Art Deco, and so there is a real bent towards a nostalgic theme, or a theme of old times. And simplicity. And I think that sort of speaks to the situation with the world today. People are looking for things to be simpler and calmer. So, I'm going to D out my other stencil. Now, I talk about shape makers, tools, and whatnot a great deal. And stencils essentially are shape makers, they're tools. So for the eyes, there's nothing worse than trying to make a circle in your eyes, get all different sizes. So I'm going to use, this is a 1/4 inch polka dot stencil. I'm going to use that to trace my eyes. And so I end up with nice round eyes. And then I have a 3/8 stencil around here somewhere. A 3/8 polka dots. Look at that. So, nope, this is the one I used. So I'm going to use this shape maker here. If I find the right size, there we go. I just find the one that's closest to the circle that I'm trying to trace. And then I use my pen to trace it. And then that 3/8 polka dot stencil is the perfect size for the inside of that button. Now you could do these as a ball, which I did, or you could paint them to look like buttons. That's entirely up to you. But using a tool to create those nice round buttons makes a world of difference in how they come out. It's also a lot easier to paint something to look round when the circle is actually round. Makes a big difference. Now, I'm going to trace my lettering on because I'm going to hand paint mine, but we are going to talk about stenciling the letter. I'm going to show you a neat trick. To get the same effect that I've got with this lettering, this shaded value at the bottom, I'm going to show you how to do that with a stencil. And it's really easy when you know how. So I'm going to show you how. I have a soft spot for snowmen. I just think they're so cute. And the nice part is they can be out all winter. You don't have to put them away after the holidays are over because it's winter. And they're not specific to Christmas. Although we see a lot of them at Christmas time, but they can stay out all winter long and you can have winter decorations. But right now I'm thoroughly enjoying the fall. Donna and Rich Paultz sent me the most adorable wreath, and for fall, it's my favorite season, and they were so sweet to send me. Rich makes awesome wreaths, and Donna paints little additives and things to go into them, and their combined efforts are flippin' amazing. I don't have that gift for floral arranging. Some people really have a really great eye for it. Rich does. His stuff is beautiful. So I was so pleased to get a box in the mail from both of them, and has a wonderful little scarecrow in it, and it's loaded with sunflowers, which is something I absolutely love. And so my front door just looks awesome thanks to Donna and Rich. I posted pictures earlier today. I have a bright red door, Tuscan red door, and I love it. But I really love it with all those sunflowers on it. It's fantastic. So I've got my little snowman traced out. I've got my lettering on. I think that looks pretty good. Close enough for government work, as they say. So we're going to do a little bit of work down here in the foreground and along this background. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch angled shader. How I end up with such a mess on my workstation is anybody's guess, but I've got quite the mess going here. I have far too many dirty stencil brushes on my desk. There we go. I did take 5 minutes to make myself a cup of tea this morning before we got started, so I have a cup of tea. Hi, Bonnie. Thank you. Whew. Oh, we could have a group of my obsessive compulsive friends, my obsessive creative friends. We'd have a field day in here. So I'm going to use a little bit of that Prussian blue that we used, and I'm going to put a shadow along that foreground right there and around my snowman. I want a nice deep shadow back there. I grabbed my Joe Sonias. Wondered why my float wasn't working as well as I like. There we go. Now we're cooking with gas. So I like a nice deep shadow in here. It sets him forward. Putting that nice wide float in there, it just brings everything up front here a little closer to you, and it pushes that background back a little bit. So we're going to deepen that. Love that Prussian blue. It's great over top of this. And we're going to do the same thing back here. We want a nice deep shadow back here, because this is in the background. And this is also why I said it is not really essential to have that background does not need to be perfect. Deb Bloomfield, your obsession is paintbrushes. Lynn, the Joe Sonia medium I'm using is Fast Dry Glaze. It's the only one that I use, but I use it for everything. So a little bit of Joe Sonia's Fast Dry. I want to get that nice dark shadow in there. Look at that. So our little snowman is going to pop forward. I use the Fast Dry Glaze whenever I float. Whenever I'm floating, doing line work, I use it instead of water. So if you're going to thin your paint with water, I thin it with Fast Dry Glaze. If I'm going to base coat, I add a little Fast Dry Glaze to my base coat. If I'm going to float, I use the Fast Dry instead of water. And it does make a big difference. Your floats are going to be a lot smoother. It's going to be a lot easier to do. There we go. And you can walk them out easy. Just like that. So I've got nice deep dark floats. There we go. I love Prussian blue. There we go. So I'm going to rinse my brush, and we're going to dry that. So we do have a coupon code on the website right now, if I can remember what it is. I swear, the elevator doesn't go to the top floor today. It's Grateful24 is the coupon code. So if you're looking for stencils, if you're looking for print patterns are on sale. If you're looking for stencils, don't forget to use that coupon code. It's 25% off. So I'm going to take a little asphaltum, get into my Fast Dry Glaze, and we're going to go in there and deepen that shadow just a little. I like the asphaltum because it tones this. It keeps that blue from looking too cold, and it gives all of that shading a little more depth. It's not a perfect float. We're not looking for a perfect float. We're just looking for a little toning and a little depth, and that's it. So by the time I dry this, we do get a nice shadow back there, but it's a little more subtle. You can see the difference right there. But it remember that dark edge, that little float of asphaltum in it? Now we've got that cohesion, and it keeps that light area right where we need it. Cindy, your elevator went to the basement. Okay. I'm with you, sister. Some days I'm lucky the elevator gets started. So the other thing that we're using today is these. I am mildly obsessed with snowflakes. Seriously. So much so that I called up Deb one day and I went, I need a big snowflake. I need a nice big snowflake. So she made me a 2-inch snowflake. She already made me like 1-inch snowflakes and little teeny tiny snowflakes, but I needed a bigger snowflake because, it's just, they're fun. And we're going to talk about painting those too. So look at that. So our next color is warm white. I go through a ton of warm white. You spend half of your time looking for things in my paint room. I spent the last month or so just gutting and reorganizing my studio. I've always been rather organized. I know where everything is, but I've just had so much a glut of things that I'm not using or wasn't using, and I decided it was time to seriously give my studio a thorough cleaning, which I've done. I've gotten rid of equipment that I wasn't using, printers that I wasn't using. We disconnected a computer that was just not being used. I had so much paint that was just sitting there doing nothing that I cleaned out and donated. I had entirely too much stuff that just was not being used. So I have cleaned out and reorganized, and it feels so much better in here. It doesn't feel so cluttered, and I can find everything. So we're going to start with the base coat. We're going to start with this background, which is just this little area here. Just going to put in a little bit of warm white. Now I'm going to paint this in streaks going horizontally, because the texture that I'm going to create in here is going to run horizontally. It is the landscape. So I'm going to put a little bit of white in there. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, right here. And again, it's landscape running horizontally. So I'm pulling the paint horizontally. And I'm going to dry that. Bye, Faye. Our local schools here, at least the middle schools, I think, and it's the same everywhere, schools are, their budgets are getting tighter and whatnot. So they don't have an arts program per se, but one of my neighbors is a lovely lady by the name of Shannon. She is a school teacher, but she also runs the art club. And unfortunately, there is no money in the budget for an art class per se. So she has an art club. And for the most part, she was, running the show on donated items and things out of her own pocket. So I donated brushes, extra brushes that I had, and donated a bunch of paint and, just some stuff that I'm not using. And it would be a shame for it to go to waste. So I donated it to her, and she was thrilled to get it, and I was thrilled to get it out of my studio. So there's our background. And then I'm going to paint right over the tracings on this snowman. I know where they are, but when I base coat, I follow the shape of the thing that I'm base coating. So this guy curves this way. And so that's how I'm base coating him. I'm following that curve. So I follow the shape of the thing that I'm painting. Again, it actually works in my favor because if any little wobbles, bobbles, flaws, and whatnot occur, they fall into the shape of the thing that I'm painting. So they become less noticeable. They don't go away, but they're less noticeable. So I'm using a little bit of warm white to paint the belly of our snowman. And I am painting to follow the shape of his belly. So follow that curve. And I think this is about the only time that I actually use more than one coat. So I've got 2 coats of warm white on our little fella here. And I'm going to dry this. And I'm going to do the same thing to our little snowman's head. Again, I'm going to paint right over all of the details. I'll just show you how I put them back in. So again, I'm following the shape. And voila. And 2 coats will be ample. Not really looking for fully opaque, to be honest. Because we're going to put some other colors over top of this, so having them fully opaque really doesn't matter. I'm just looking for even. Even is more important than fully opaque. So I'm going to dry that. Oh, Linda, that is absolutely the truth. Creative people tend to have more than one thing going. There's usually one thing that they're absolutely obsessed with. In my case, it's painting. And then you have the other side of that coin. Well, it's although we're creative, so then we've got colored pencils and watercolors, and we've got all of those things in there, which I do. But I also I do a lot of stuff with essential oils. I do a lot of stuff with canning and preserving food and drying herbs and baking and cooking, and I also knit, and I also crochet, and I also do a little bit of needlework. So yes, organizing things is huge. And so I have my knitting equipment is kept in one place and it's organized, and my needlework is kept somewhere else and it's organized, and so on. So yeah, we tend to have to be organized, otherwise you end up with a mess. So I'm going to dry our little snowman really well because we're going to base coat his scarf white as well. Okay, what am I missing, Charmaine? Isn't there a snowman on the right? Nope, it's a scarf. So I'm going to use a little bit of thinned warm white to base the scarf. Now, I'm using thinned because I don't want it to be the same opacity or same brightness as the rest of the snowman. And I missed a spot. There we go. So using the thinned warm white, heavily thinned. And this way I can still distinguish it from the rest of my snowman. There we go. So you can see, so I've got a little spot right here that I missed, and this is also part of the snowman. Right there. I think that's what Charmaine was referring to, that I had missed a spot. There we go. Because he's, you know, rather rotund little fellow. Lisa, I'm trying to stop buying more and use what I already collected. In other words, finished projects I've either started once planned to start. Oh, yes, absolutely. That's a good idea. And I essentially go through my craft room and see what I have. Sometimes I create stuff, and then I need, you know, embellishments and the like. That's where I run into trouble. I need stuff. Hi, Robin. Good to have you join us. Oh, there's nothing wrong with being sidetracked by a beautiful fall day. Okay, so we have our little snowman is all base coated. I get a little bit of thin warm white. I've got a spot here that's bugging me, and it will continue to bug me unless I fix it. There we go. There we are. Beauty. So there we go. Alrighty. So this little guy actually works up pretty quick. I like to do all of the darker shading before I put in some of the lighter colors, but I wanted to show you the colors we're using for this scarf. Tea berry, which is why I base coated this with white. This tea berry's a little bit transparent when you brush it out, so I didn't want to. Why did Faye probably had to had something with her husband, so a little bit of tea berry. I put the white down so that we get nice coverage out of the tea berry. I like this color a lot. I've been using it a lot because it's such a pretty color. And then I know this is going to sound funny, but this is the shading color I chose, Watermelon Slice, which is sort of a rich pinky red, and it really works well with tea berry. It's a nice shading color for it. It's a subtle transition, so it's not an in-your-face color. So it's a really, I really like this color paired up with that watermelon slice, or with the tea berry. So that's the color we're going to use for the scarf. For the shading on the body, I also decided to use a new color. It's this one, Stormy. This is such an unusual blue. There's nothing else like it in the decor lineup. It shades beautifully with Prussian blue or deep midnight blue. It works beautifully with any of those really dark blues. But this one has this nice gray, very cool gray undertone to it. And it works really nicely for shading whites. So this is the color we're going to use. It's a little moody, almost like a denim. But it has that nice gray undertone to it that I really like. So we're going to use that. I'm going to thin it, a little bit of glazing medium, and that is our shading color for our snowman. And I'm going to start on the face, and we're going to shade underneath the chin and on the left side of the head, up underneath that hat. Love this color. And then a narrower float on the other side. And then we're going to dry that. It's a really nice blue. Just make sure you thin it out well. And it floats very nicely. It'll give you a nice transparent color. Hi, Susan Bergenstock. Nice to have you join us. Ooh, working on a long arm machine. That's one thing I don't do is quilt. And Karen Jones will attest to it, that if I have to sit in front of a sewing machine, pretty much guaranteed I'm going to sew myself to something. And it won't be good. And I always manage to either hurt myself or make some catastrophic error when I'm using a sewing machine. I am not a seamstress by any stretch of the imagination. I decided I was going to hem some drapes in my home, and which I managed to do, and I did it quite well. You know, they were straight, they were even. I didn't have, uneven drapes, which was fine. The only problem is that I managed to sew my shirt tail directly to my drapes, because that's how I roll. I have the greatest admiration for people who can sew and quilt, because it's not me. I can do a whole lot of things, but that's not one of them. About the biggest job I've ever done with a sewing machine was I make gift bags. I'm fine with small crafty items. I'm fine, but I don't do anything major. So once we've got all of that shading, that first shading in on the snowman, we're going to shade the background as well, that foreground. We're going to put a little of that blue outside. And then we're going to just pick a spot to put a snowdrift and just put a float of that blue in there. That's all. Nothing major. It can go anywhere you want. It can be down low. It can be up high. It doesn't matter. So it's just to give, a little undulation to the snow. So it's not a flat surface. We wanted to get a little depth back there. So we're going to dry all of that. Oh, Shannon, that was mean. Hey, Denise. Welcome, welcome. So there we are. So once that's dry, I like to go back in and deepen it on the areas where they're going to have the darkest shadows. So on the left, because all of our highlights are going to be on the right. All of our highlights are going to be on the left. Lucy, I cook. The only other studio that I'm in on a regular basis is my kitchen. Karen Jones will attest to that too. In case you haven't figured it out, guys, Karen is perhaps one of my oldest friends. Karen was with me the night my daughter was born. We have been friends for over 35 years. So yes, she came in and painted with me one afternoon, so I'm responsible for giving her that bug. So there we go. You see how you get all of these streaks and things like that? I kind of like that. It gives our little snowman a little bit of texture. He doesn't look flat and smooth. And that's one of the reasons that I like using that. So I'm going to dry this, and this part is fun. I'm going to grab my little knit stencil, And I'm going to put it at a bit of an angle, like so. Again, kind of trying to follow the shape. And I'm going to use a stencil brush, if I can find one, that is clean. There we go. And we're going to use just a tiny bit of that same blue, very tiny bit. And we're just going to lightly scumble a little pattern in. Like so. I just want a little texture on his belly. I don't need to have a ton of it. It doesn't have to be dark, but we needed a little bit of texture.
Why is he wearing a sweater?
Because he's a snowman.
Why does a snowman
Need a sweater?
need a sweater?
He doesn't need one. And he's made out of one.
Oh, he's made out of a sweater.
Comes
So
to
he's
John.
not a snowman. He's a sweater man.
He's a sweater man. Sweater man, snowman. So a little bit on his face too, just for giggles. Why not? So that little bit of texture, look at that. Just makes them fun. Are the little, yes, we have these in a set of 6. And we're going to use a bunch of them today. They're small, they're ideal for working in small surfaces because you don't have to juggle a big stencil. So they're fun. So little bit of that knit pattern very lightly. If you don't like that color, you can use a lighter blue if you want to. So super easy to work with. So we need to put eyeballs and buttons back on. So I'm going to use a stencil and a little bit of lamp black. This is where using stencils can be so helpful. Instead of having to go in and paint each eye meticulously and then try to maintain both the size and the shape. Here we go. I'm going to use a little bit of lamp black. And I'm using the 1/4 inch polka dot stencil for his eyeballs. And we're just going to stencil a circle. Ta-da! And then position the second one. And you have eyeballs. Perfect little round eyeballs. And you didn't have to work hard to paint them. So we have cute little eyeballs. And then I have, again, that 3/8 inch polka dot stencil. This one here. So I like to put those in, and you can do the same thing. Just use a series of shape makers or polka dot stencils. Just something, as long as it's close, it's all good. And I make 3. I just move them around till I'm happy with their position. So you don't have to work hard to do this. So I have belly buttons and I have eyeballs. Good name for them, belly buttons. Oh, using a stencil to do eyeballs, especially something like this, is just major stress relief. You don't have to work about it. Now, I'm going to use a rigger, and we're going to use a little bit of, I've got bright orange. This little guy comes together really quickly at this point. So I'm going to use a rigger and a little bit of bright orange. And I'm going to tell you a secret. When you start your nose, make sure that you center it between the eyes. Otherwise, the nose looks kind of wonky. So center between the eyes. And you can do the really cute straight snowman nose, or you can do it wonky, however you want. There's no bad way to do a snowman nose. So he's got a nose. And it's a cute nose. And then This is my favorite way of doing this. I don't use the stylus. I usually use either the tip of my brush or the handle of my brush for dip dots. Um, but we're going to give him a series of little dots for a mouth. And just make sure you curve him up a little bit so he's got a smile. So we're going to dry this. I love the knit look on the belly. Just a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot, but just enough to imply that there's some texture there. Same with the head. I like a little bit. It doesn't have to be a ton. So I'm going to make sure that's good and dry, and then I'm going to grab, where is my dry brush? I'm going to grab a little point blender. And a little bit of tea berry. Just because we're going to use tea berry shortly anyway, so it's no problem having it on the palette. You can use watermelon slice if you want to, but I'm going to use a little bit of tea berry. And you're going to load up your favorite dry brush. Doesn't matter what that is. It could be a point blender, a dome blender, small stencil brush, whatever works for you. I'm using a point blender because I happen to have one handy. And we're going to give our little guy a rosy cheek. I know. How many snowmen have rosy cheeks? Ours does. And then same over here. Little rosy cheek. Like I said, you can use anything you want. If you want to use the watermelon slice, use the watermelon slice. If you like the tea berry, go for it. So he's got little rosy cheeks. I like it. So now I'm going to switch to a smaller angled shader. I'm going to switch to a 3/8 because I like my 3/8. And we're going to do some shading around the eyes and those belly buttons. I think that's a great word for it, belly buttons. So I'm going to use a little bit of Prussian blue. Don't forget to get into your, it's a little, or not Prussian blue, good heavens. A little bit of stormy blue. That, my brain shut off there for a second. A little bit of stormy blue, and we're going to put a float to the right up against that belly button, top to bottom. Just putting a shadow on the left side of our buttons. And you're going to do the same thing to the eye. A little shadow to the right of the eyeballs. Just like that. He should be happy. He's a happy little snowman. And then you're going to deepen that float with a float of asphaltum. So, little float of asphaltum over top of that float that you just put in. And then we're going to do the same thing to all of the shading everywhere. So I'll switch back to my 1/2 inch because I'm going to be working in a larger area. And I'm going to heavily thin that asphaltum. You don't want it full strength because then it'll just make everything look dirty and heavy. And we don't want that. So, nice little float of asphaltum over top of that blue. And it's going to make everything look a little bit gray, which I kind of like. Do the same thing. And do the same thing to the snow. Float right over top of that blue. Deepen the shading on the head, under the jaw, or under the chin, under the hat. And I like taking those floats right across the bottom. Make sure that you get over top of all of those blues. Look at that. So we get this really nice earthy and dark gray value to him. We're not looking at bright blues on this. So we want to keep all of that subdued a little, because we're going to use some of that bright, very bright tea berry. This is where that punch of color is going to come from. Everything else is going to be fairly muted, except for that scarf. That scarf is going to be very bright. Right over top of that little bit of warm white. And follow the shape of the scarf. Just like that. So all of those little wobbles and bobbles and imperfections that you thought were sticking out get cleaned up when we put this on. So all of those crisp edges. Now, the downside to this tea berry is it's going to take a couple of coats. And I don't often put more than one coat of anything on, but some colors it's unavoidable, and this is one of them. It would have been worse if we had not base coated with white. Just so that we get a nice bright. It's such an unusual color. It's not quite a coral and not quite a pink and not quite a red. It's like a wonderful blend of all of the above. And it's just such a pretty color. Hi, Susan. Welcome. So just so you guys know, we have a special day tomorrow. A very special day. Tomorrow is Renee's birthday. And he's going to kill me for telling you. He has a birthday tomorrow. So I am making our tradition for birthdays. We've never been big on birthday parties and whatnot, but birthdays have always been a family thing for us. And it's an opportunity for us to spend time together as a family. And so it's always been, you can pick your restaurant if you want to go out for dinner, or you get to pick the meal if we're going to eat at home. And then we usually just spend some time together, either playing cards or watching a movie together. You know, it's just, it's always been a family thing for us. And so Renee, when I asked him what he wanted, so he wants beef Wellington. So that's what we are having for dinner tomorrow night. So I am making beef Wellington. The beef tenderloin is already in the fridge, trimmed and ready to go. So, and the puff pastry is in the fridge as well, waiting for me to roll it out. So, all set for tomorrow. There we go. So when I'm base coating, I always follow the shape of whatever I'm base coating and the direction. So if it's going down, I go down. If it's what's for dinner tonight, we're having Chinese tonight. I'm making Chinese. Or I should say Japanese, really. So, dim sum. Hi, Robin. So there. So we're almost there. So the fun part about the scarf on this one is that we're using that same little knit stencil. What kind of cake? Renee's not having cake. Renee is having sugar pie. Sugar pie. It is a favorite in our house. So I'm going to position the stencil like so. And I'm using a little bit of watermelon slice for our scarf. Didn't want a really harsh contrast, but it needed some contrast. So a little bit of watermelon slice on the scarf until it meets the scarf. And then I'm going to use the pattern to go down the scarf as well. Watermelon slice. I love this color. And it works so, so well. And I kind of messed that up, but that's okay. I'm just going to line up my stencil again. And then finish off the bottom of the scarf. It's sort of a tone-on-tone look, so it's not a really harsh contrast. It's very soft and subtle, but it works really well. So I'm going to dry that. I like that our little snowman has that sort of knit look to it. He's fun. There we go. So, isn't he fun? It's just such a simple way to jazz up a pattern. By the time we put the shading and the highlighting in, it will be less, the fact that it's very rigid won't be a big deal. Tom and Carol Eves, you like tarte au sucre? Tarte au sucre. Sugar pie. It is quite literally a pie made with a sugar filling. Some people have compared it to like a pecan pie without the pecans, but it's a little bit different. We make it with brown sugar. And in some areas, they actually use a little maple syrup as well. Ours is heavy on the butter, heavy on the cream. So it's very rich, but it's not as sweet as you'd expect. But it is made from sugar and is a very creamy filling. So now we're going to shade this scarf. I'm going to switch to a smaller angled shader. I'm going to use a 3/8 for this. And the shading color is also the watermelon slice. And this little scarf has got some fun little shadings in it, just like this. And they're indicated in the line drawing. So we have some at the top. And we have one at the bottom. Look at that. So it just divides up the scarf a little bit, puts those folds in the fabric. They don't have to be perfect. Don't kill yourself trying to get them perfect. They don't need to be. So there's a nice little fold there. And then there's a nice little shadow here underneath. See where that scarf folds over top. So we need to put a nice little float there. And we're going to put a float just like this because there's a crease where the scarf has wrapped around. And a short shadow on both of those. So it almost instantly, is there a substitute color for watermelon slice? Let me see. What can we do for that? That is watermelon slice. Cinnamon drop. Just thin it heavily, but cinnamon drop will work. Yeah, just thin it out a lot. Cinnamon drop's going to be a little bit darker. That's why I say thin it out a little bit. It'll work too. It will work. So you can go in and deepen those if you want a little more definition, which I did. So I'm just going to put a little, just to deepen that float a little bit. And make sure it's dark enough under there. So it gives us that nice fluffy look that we wanted for the scarf. We wanted it to look, you know, poofy. Now I'm going to dry this a little bit and we're going to deepen that shading, tone that shading with a little bit of asphaltum. And it's heavily thinned. Anytime that you're using asphaltum over top of shading, you heavily thin it. So lots of water, a little bit of paint. And this is what gives that little extra depth. Doesn't drastically change the color, but it does give it a little extra depth. So there we go. And it's fast and dirty. Don't worry too much about meticulous lines. And in here, we're going to deepen that. I love a little bit of asphaltum. Does wonderful things. And there. Now I'm using this quite sparingly, but it does make a difference to the value of your shading when you use a little bit of asphaltum. Just tones things. Hi Monty, good to have you here. And Rosalind, nice to see you too. Oh, sugar pie is yummy. Hi Puddin'. You're awake and joining us. Good for you. So I'm going to grab another dry brush. We're going to use a little bit of warm white this time around. I'm going to use my, ooh, goodness, a little more white on my brush than I had intended. Okay. So we're going to add a highlight to the scarf. Little dry brush. Just in the center. Nice soft highlight. Just in the center. This is the light impact point on this scarf, and it's just a very light little highlight. We're going to do the same thing to the center, upper center of these areas here. Just in the center. Follow the shape. So if it curves a bit, make your highlight curve a bit. There we go. Look at that. So a little bit of white. And it's light. We're just putting a light dry brush on. Just enough to give a little bit of light. Easy peasy. We want a nice fluffy scarf. So we got a nice fluffy scarf. So let's... Oh, there are a great many variations to sugar pie. So we're going to add some highlights to the eyes and to the buttons. I'm going to use a very light float of heavily thinned warm white. And we're going to put a float. Of course, I thinned it so much I don't have any paint left in my brush. Hello. So a little float of warm white. Come in just slightly from the edge. You want a little sliver of the black to show. Just a little sliver. Like that. And you're going to do the same thing to the buttons. Use a little sliver of the black showing through. So just in from the edge slightly. And it helps give your buttons that round look or a spherical look. And then we're going to make this little guy come to life. A little bit of warm white on the upper left of each eye, right on the edge of that float. Same thing with the buttons. Upper left, right on the edge of that float. So we get nice round buttons. And the nose, the bottom of the nose gets a little float of asphaltum. Just like that. It's not a perfect float. It's just enough to darken the underside of the nose. And then with a liner or a rigger, you're just going to put a little line, squiggly line of warm white. And then on each of those little dots for the mouth, we're going to add a little highlight as well. Tiny little dot of white. Just like that. He's so cute. I'll put the recipe up, Sylvia. I'll put the recipe up on the recipe page on the website. Yep. I have actually a few more recipes to put up this week, so alrighty. Our little snowman is really starting to take shape. So we're going to come up here to the hat. Now the hat is base coated with Prussian blue. And again, and like I keep saying, follow the shape when you're base coating. And even though we're on such a dark blue background, this Prussian blue is going to stand out when we're done. So, Prussian blue, and then we're going to do the underside of the brim as well. I love Prussian blue for a hat because it's just such a rich color. And for the snowman hat, I didn't want black. Black would be too much, I think. And the blue follows really nicely with our color scheme. So a little bit of Prussian. And we're going to dry that real quick. The background color, Julie, is deep midnight blue. Thank you, Serena. I kind of like him too. I think he's fun. So I'm going to make sure this is dry, and then I think I'm going to put one more coat of blue on. Oh, you're quite welcome, Julie. One more coat of Prussian blue. I just want this a nice deep blue. Not to mention I want to bury a little bit of that texture that's showing through. There we go. Easy peasy. There we are. How did she like the car? Not at all?
You can get her in it.
Oh no?
No. That's gonna take some doing. Like even cheese wasn't motivation.
Really? Oh wow. Okay. Miss Mays does not like the car. Just saying. She doesn't like it when it pulls into the driveway. She doesn't like getting in it. Does not like the car. So I've got a little bit of Stormy. That's the color we're going to base coat the brim of the hat. The edge of the hat, just like so. Great color, Stormy. Ta-da!
I would have chose like a velvety red.
Yeah. Could have. I wanted to go with this.
Lime green.
You want
Neon green.
Neon green. Renee wants a neon green.
But it's a nice top hat, so it should be...
It should be an elegant color, correct? Yes. That was my feeling as well. So, I'm using that same color, Stormy, to put the hat band on. And traditionally, the hat band on a top hat was satin. So, we're going to make it look like satin.
Why not silk?
Or silk. It's generally satin, though. The hats were wool. There we are.
And loaded with mercury.
Again with the ray of sunshine.
But it's true.
It is true.
That's how you ended up with the character called the Mad Hatter.
Was in Jacksonville, Oregon yesterday, remembering fondly the day we had shopping and exploring when you were... Oh my gosh. I actually saw photographs of that the other day when I was going through my phone. We had such a great day. Antique shopping and that whole area when I was up in Oregon. Oh, it was fabulous. I loved every minute of it. Julie was phenomenal. She was my tour guide. We had such a great day. Had a wonderful time. We went out for tea, which was great. Had a nice little lunch together. It was awesome.
I've come to realize that Maze is the polar opposite of Dot.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. She is in many ways. So, we've got... I'm going to put another quick bit in here because there's something not... There we go. Right there. I had a wonky brush mark in there I didn't like, so cover it up. There we are. So this is just a fun little hat, and we're going to decorate it in a fun way. So 1/2-inch angled shader, we're going to shade our hat. A little bit of lamp black. And we're going to put a nice little float of lamp black up the right side of the hat. And a little one on the left side as well. And essentially, we want the center portion of the hat. See where the highlight on the scarf is? We want that all to sort of line up. So I'm going to dry that, and then we're going to deepen that float one more time. So, float of lamp black on the right side, because we want a nice little shadow back there. And then we're going to put another one on this side. Like so. And I think I want to walk this one out a little bit. Just a little. It needs to be a little wider than the other one. There we go. No, Maze does not like the car. And she gets car sick too, which doesn't help, which is probably why she doesn't like the car. So we've got a nice little shadow on either side of this hat. So we're going to put a nice little highlight in the center. I'm going to use my Mezzaluna, same one that we used here. And we're going to put a highlight in the center of the hat. And it's going to be fairly wide because it's going to touch the edges of that shadow. Just like that. And then I'm going to pay a little attention to the center of that highlight. Because the center of this highlight, oops, a little too much paint. Good God. Here we go. Oh my goodness. Dry brushing is not my friend today. I think I just got a little too much paint. So, little highlight in the center of the hat. I need to take that off because that is not on. So I'm going to scrub to remove said highlight. A little bit of water will do it. There we go. All gone. It went bye-bye. And now take off the worst with the cloth. And I'll dry this and then we'll try it again. And I'm just using warm white for the highlight. So, there we go. That's better. Good God. So, there we go. Highlight in the center of the hat. And then each time you highlight, it gets a little narrower. So that at the center point, we get a brighter highlight. There we go. So essentially, we want the brightest highlight dead center of the hat. See? Follows down the center. Now, we're going to do a similar highlight on the hat. You see the curve in the hat? There's a little curve here, and then there's a little curve there, and one over there. We're going to highlight each of those curves separately. So I'm going to take a little of that base color, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of warm white. We're going to make a lighter version of that blue. Quite light. And we're going to just use a few little strokes like so. So highlight just like that there. A little bit over here. So that I have that darker value in the center, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. And it's just a few lines. It doesn't have to be solid, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm going to take a little bit of warm white. And in the center of that lighter color, I'm going to put a little bit of warm white. Again, it's slightly smaller each time. And then the final bit is going to be white, just like the center. It does not have to be perfect. This hat is imperfect. But we need that warm white in there to reflect the warm white that's in the hat. Right there. Tiny little highlight. Now, if you want to, you could put a bright stroke of warm white. Y'all are drinking straight vodka. That's just because they're very relaxed at this point. Straight vodka. I've used it to fix things, but not a good idea to drink it while you're painting. Funny things happen. So, I'm going to add a little bit of a shadow to my hat right here. A little bit of Prussian blue, just because that was getting away from us there. There we are. And now we're going to add a fun little sprig of, I'm going to call them pip berries, to our hat. And I'm going to grab a liner brush for this. We're going to use a little bit of thin asphaltum. Because we can. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of cobblestone on my brush as well. And we're just going to stroke in some little twigs. Nothing fancy. Just some twigs, like so. And they can go in any direction you want. See, just a few little twigs. And then going to use the end of your brush and dip into, you can use either the tea berry or the watermelon slice if you like. And you're just going to add some simple little dip dots. Like so. And they can go in any direction you want. You can do as much or as little as you want. I want some of mine to go away from the hat. They can be teeny tiny. They can be nice and big. That's entirely up to you. But we need little pip berries in there. And I'm going to dry that. It's just a fun way to finish off this hat. Typically, we have an idea, people think to put holly berries and holly leaves and whatnot, which kind of ties it to Christmas, and I didn't really want to do that. So I decided to go with pip berries, which was just, twigs with little pink berries on them, which I think is fun. And then, while we've got that color out, little asphaltum, a little bit of, all I did was just dip into a little bit of that cobblestone. And we're going to paint in that twig for the arm. It is just a twig, branch, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but any stretch of the imagination. And there is another one on this side. It's just a little branch. It doesn't have to be much. Like so. It is subtle. It doesn't stand out like a bear on a bicycle. Now to highlight it, I used a little bit of that bright orange that we used in his nose. And that was just a little squiggly line like so. Nothing fancy. And nothing over the top. Just something with a little highlight in it. That's all. Which brings us to greenery. So I chose to do a couple of little leaves. We're going to put some greenery here and a little bit on that branch. I'm using a little bit of lush green. That is the main color. And then I'm also using a little bit of new leaf. I like to have those two colors. I love that lush green. The leaves are on this branch are very simple. They're just just teeny tiny little ovals, if you will. Simplified, basic little leaves. They're simple. And then for the leaves on the hat, it's a double load. I'm picking up both colors. I've got a little bit of lush green and a little bit of that leaf green. And I'm just putting in 3 little comma strokes on the hat. That's it. Nothing fancy. And then I use that mixture to put a highlight onto the smaller leaves, just to fill them in. There's no fancy painting for these little leaves. They are simple and straightforward. Nothing fancy. No major details to them or anything. No fancy shading. So, going to dry that. We're going to add a little curlicue and some stems to this, and that's about it for that greenery. I'm going to take a little bit of green, that new leaf, the brighter green, and I'm going to add just a touch of white to it. Just a touch. I want to make it a little more, just a little lighter. And I'm using the liner to put those stems in. Little curlicue. And I'm putting a vine around the branch, like so. Little curlicue at the end, because, you know. And a little branch to connect the leaves to our vine. Simple, simple. Nothing fancy, nothing over the top. And that liner brush, we're going to add tiny little highlights to our pip berries, like so. Don't have to be anything fancy, just a tiny little dot of white. Comme ça. Now, I also like to take a little bit of that thinned white. It's an opportunity to crisp up and brighten highlights, especially at the brim of the hat. I think it behooves us. Check out any of your other highlights if they need punching up. This is the time to do it. And I see a couple I want to brighten. Oh, goodness. I got blue on my dry brush. That's not a good thing. There we go. So I just wanted to brighten up a couple of highlights on my scarf. A little bit on the hat. Brighter highlights are never a bad thing. And this is also an opportunity if you feel that something needs to be brightened on the belly. Dry brush a little there too. Never a bad thing. And so we're going to come back to our background. He is cute, isn't he? He's fun. Rotund little fellow. So I'm going to dry him. Make sure everything is good and dry at this point. Now, I like to add things to my background because it's a nifty looking background, but it is not snowy. So we're going to use that 1/8 polka dot stencil and a little bit of warm white. I'm going to find a cleaner stencil brush. I think I've dirtied every stencil brush I own this week, which is saying something because I own a lot of stencil brushes. I like to bring a little bit of like snowflakes into it. So I like to take my 1/8 snow brush or 1/8 polka dot stencil brush and just put a few little bright polka dots. They make great snowflakes. And it's just a fun way to add a little more texture to this background. And don't be afraid to do this. bring a few of them in and over top of things. It does not hurt. And it's random. They're just sort of there. It's not, there's no rhyme or reason for where they go. It's just going to create a little texture back there and in the foreground. So we have little polka dots to fill up, some of that negative space. It's never a bad thing. So we're going to do the lettering on this one. I'm using a number 2 or a 0 rigger because this is a fairly small font. And we're going to shade our lettering first. I like to shade my lettering first. This way you're not worrying about working right over top of your lettering when you go to put those shadows in. I like to shade first. So we're going to use 1/2 inch angled shader and Prussian blue. And we're going to shade right up against the lettering, inside the curves. And I'm shading on the right side of each of those curves. Just like that. Does not have to be perfect. It's just going to give this lettering a little bit of height, a little elevation, and lift it off the surface a little bit. And this is such an easy way to make your lettering stand out. So there we go. Don't forget all of those little spaces. Look at that. In there, inside the curve, the outside, underneath, in there. Doesn't have to be perfect. But it does, even that little change in the tone, the shading, makes a world of difference in how the lettering looks when you're finished with it. So I like to do it first because then when you're putting in your color for your lettering, if you've gone over the edge or if it's a little wonky, then it cleans it all up. Good heavens, somebody had an accident? I hope not. So, the lettering on this is done with thinned warm white. And I'm going to give myself a clean palette because I'm running out of spaces. Clean palette, a little bit of warm white. And of course I have an empty bottle. Move some stuff out of my way, good heavens. I have stuff everywhere. I'm getting in my own way. How's that? Okay. There we go. Got a little bit of warm white. So I'm going to move my palette, because we don't have a palette cam today, I'm going to move my palette in so a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. I'm using a 0 rigger and a little bit of Joe Sonia's Fast Dry to thin out the paint. So we want the brush to look like this. It shouldn't have a gob of paint on it, but you should be able to tell that there's paint in it. So press down until the brush fills up that space and then bring it up on its chisel edge. And then the nice thing is you can turn it on the chisel edge and do those little fine lines. Chisel edge, press down till it fills the space, bring it back up onto the chisel edge. Easy peasy. And again, that chisel edge lets you do those fine lines. I'm going to dry that because I will put my fingers in it. I'm notorious for it. So I'm going to quickly finish off this lettering, and then we're going to talk about how you stencil lettering on in a case like this. Now, I'm doing hand-painted lettering because that's my jam. That's what I like doing. But lettering stencils are available in so many places, and it's a very easy way to do lettering, particularly if you're not comfortable or confident doing it with a brush. When you have the right brush to do it with, it's so much simpler. But it is not, it does take practice, let's put it that way. I won't say that it's easy, it's easier with a brush, but it does take a fair amount of practice to become proficient and to be comfortable with it. So if you're not comfortable doing it, that's okay. You can practice on cardboard until you get where you want to be, but if you're not comfortable doing it on your painted piece, then by all means use a stencil. It takes a little practice, quite honestly, to become proficient with a brush, with a paintbrush for doing this type of thing. And I have days where I couldn't paint lettering to save my soul. You know, the hands sometimes shake, the arthritis gets in the way. I mean, life in general gets in the way. So you do what you are comfortable doing. And there is no shame in using a stencil to do something that you are not comfortable doing. If you end up with a nicely painted piece at the end of it, how does it matter how you got there? And it does take practice to do this. And as I said, some days I couldn't do this if my life depended on it. For whatever reason, I'm tired, I haven't slept, or, whatever the reason is. We don't all have perfect painting days. So a stencil is a great way to solve that problem. So this is going to look a little wonky till I get all of those graphite lines cleaned up, which won't take too long. But we're not going to do that until all of this paint is dry, because otherwise I'm just going to make a mess of it. So there we go. There we are. So let it snow. So I'm going to dry this real quick. And then I want to show you a neat little trick for doing lettering. So I'm going to grab a piece of Artigan. And I'm going to set this little guy aside for just for a little bit. We're going to come back to him shortly. So I know I have a stencil here somewhere that says snow day. Let it snow. Here we go. So here's our let it snow stencil. I'm going to tape it in place. I hate when a stencil shifts. It makes a mess. So tape your stencil in place. One side, if you really don't feel like stenciling it, the more sides the better, quite honestly. Now, in this case, we're going to use a little bit of warm white to do this lettering, because this lettering is going to stand out. The brush should be almost dry. Almost. You're going to hold the brush up vertically, and you're going to work in a circular fashion and change directions frequently. Just like that. This will help give you a much more uniform finish in the end. So, circular fashion, change directions frequently. And that is important. If you keep going in one direction all the time, the paint will collect on one side of the stencil, and then eventually it will collect to the point where it slips underneath. By changing directions, it helps distribute the paint more evenly and reduces the chance that it's going to bleed underneath your stencil. So, circular fashion. I'm trying not to make a mess of this, by the way, because I'm working on paper and I could easily go off the stencil. So, here we are. And because I'm working on paper, it takes the paint a bit differently. So I have to work a little quicker. Here we go. And not all stencils are created evenly. Or not evenly, equally. I'm going to tell you that. Good quality stencils have lots of bridges. Poor quality stencils have too many open areas and long points. It just means that they didn't take the time to think them out completely. And a bad stencil will give you endless grief. It will drive you insane. So, there we go. I think that's good enough for our purposes today. So, I've got my stencil done in white. And then I'm going to take that, the shading color that we're going to use on our snowflake, or Let It Snow snowman. We're going to use that Stormy. Now, ordinarily, I float my shadow across the bottom of my lettering, or the top, depending on what kind of mood I'm in. In this case, we're going to take that Stormy across the bottom of the stencil, like so. Change directions. And it's just across the bottom. And on the stencil, it's going to look like a dog's breakfast. It's going to look messy, and that's okay. So you're just going to stencil across the bottom, only across the bottom. So about the 1/3 of the way, that's what you're going to do. A little bit of Stormy. Don't forget to change directions. That's what's going to give you that nice gradient, that soft look. And I'm going to do the same thing to the snow, the W, just like that. Now, if you really want to brighten things, if you find that it looked a little overworked, you can pick up a little bit of warm white and go across the top, like so. Change directions. It's always important to change directions. And we'll brighten the top of the lettering. And it does look like an absolute mess while you're working. So I've got the blue at the bottom, I've got the warm white at the top, and now you can take your tape off and carefully lift your stencil, and this is what you get. So that's how you get that nice smooth gradient. So it's shaded at the bottom and you get the highlight at the top. That's how you do it. A boom. So you can do this before you paint your snowman. If you prefer to use the stencil to do the lettering, do your lettering first and then paint the snowman after it, because the snowman can overlap the word snow quite easily, but it does fit perfectly within the parameters of that 6x10 surface, whether you use the tombstone or whether you use the tag. Either one is going to work beautifully. So, having showed you how to do it with a stencil, now I'm going to show you how to do it with an angled shader. You just bring in that little float across the 1/3, the lower third of the lettering. I'm just going to put a float in. Now you can do this with a liner brush too. Just stroke in a little of that blue from the bottom up. But I like to just float it in. Comme ça. I like that little float. That it just grounds it, gives the lettering a little bit of substance. Easy peasy. And because you're on such a dark blue, it doesn't stand out. Now I'm going to dry this, and then you can deepen it with a little float of asphaltum over top. That'll just give it a little more chutzpah. But we're going to do a little bit of finishing work on our snowman here. So I've got my favorite, my black gel pen. You know I like my gel pen. And I like to go around my snowman. Scribbly lines. Neatness doesn't count. Perfection is to be avoided at all cost. I like my little scribbly lines, like so. We're going to do the scarf same way. Scribbly lines. I like the scribbly lines. I also like to throw the odd little stitch mark in. Just makes this look more fabricy. I don't suppose that's a word, is it? Fabricy.
In French it is.
Fabriqué, yes, but not in English.
Not quite the same thing.
Not quite the same thing, no. And I like to do this to the snowman too. My little snowman guy, I love him. I just think he's fun. I like the texture that this creates. I just find it creates an element of texture. It's just fun. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
It's a word now.
It is now. Fabricy. So I've got a little bit of stitching in. I mean, you can put this wherever you want. You want to put this in the foreground back here, or in the background in the snow, you go for it. You can put it wherever you like. So once that is all done, we're going to grab our fugly brush, and I'm going to spatter with warm white. And I'm kind of generous with the warm white at this point.
Because it's snowing.
Because it's snowing. And then I want to keep it nice and cool, so I'm going to grab a little bit of that Stormy. I really like this blue. And we're going to use a little of that too, just to maintain a little texture and a little cool. And I'm going to set that aside to dry because we need to paint some snowflakes. Now, I have a whole bag full of them. We did, for this piece, we did a kit. So it's got 7 snowflakes in it for this one. Had to be in an odd number. And I'm going to use a stencil brush and some warm white. And I need a new bottle of warm white because this one is empty. There we go. Oops. Oh no. Oh, whew. Whew. For a second I thought that was wet. So I'm using a stencil brush and warm white. Now, when you get these snowflakes, you ever get one that's got all of these, looks like smoke marks on them? Use the other side. There's always a clean side, or a cleaner side, I should say. And this is the side we're going to use. And I use a stencil brush to do this. You can use a sponge brush, almost anything, really. And we're going to put a coat of warm white on our snowflakes.
Dip it in the paint if you want to.
You could, yes. But I don't know. I can already mess up my manicure pretty good. I can do it this way. So, little coat, white paint. Doesn't have to be perfect.
Always remember, Tracy doesn't like even numbers.
No. Well, it's a design law, actually. Odd numbers. Asymmetry. Whoopsie daisy. There we go. So, I've got a coat of white on my snowflakes.
Why do you have an even number snowflake?
It's not an even number. 7. I like even numbers. So I'm going to dry those real quick. Now you can do all sorts of fun things to these if you choose to. I'm in love with this stuff. This is Duraclear Galaxy Varnish. This stuff is so fun. It's got a chunky varnish, a chunky English, right. It has a chunky glitter in it. Good gravy, Marie. And I like to just dab it on like so. So instead of meticulously brushing it on in an even coat, I like to dab it on so that it gets, lots of those chunks on it. I find if you brush it out, it tends to take some of the glitter and move it around a bit too much, and I prefer to have it stay put. So I like chunky glitter, and I like it to stay where I put it. So just stipple it on, pat it on. Oops. And while it's still wet, if you really want to amp up the glitter, oops, that didn't work well. You can take a minute and sprinkle these with a little bit of glamour dust if you want to amp it up a little. I think there should be glitter on snowflakes. That's just a me thing. There should be lots of glitter. So I'm going to take a minute, dry these, and then we're going to attach them to our piece. The fun part in this, quite honestly, is in arranging these snowflakes to the best advantage. And one of the cool things about doing something like this or using this type of thing is that if there are little flaws and bobbles or things that you're not pleased with, this is a great way to hide them or disguise them a little bit. Oh, Robin is telling you to run because I broke out the glitter. The actual glitter. It's going to be everywhere. So, I'm going to dig out my favorite craft glue. And we're going to start with this big honkin' one. I love this big honkin' snowflake because he's just too cute. And I'm going to use a little bit of craft glue on the back, like so. Now, I like this one in the upper left corner. It can go off the page. It can overlap your lettering. It's okay. And the same with these larger 1-inch snowflakes. I like to maneuver them around so that there's a nice balance. And I use them to kind of fill up a little bit of the negative space. You don't have large open spaces everywhere. Look how fun. And then I use the teeny tiny ones, the smaller ones, to take over some of those other places. There is absolutely nothing wrong with having one on your snowman. But have a look at your piece and you decide where they need to be. And I think I need one right there. So they create a little extra dimension and a little extra oomph. And I think that one was a mistake. There we go. Because I got 2 here. So here we go. We'll tuck one in there. could sparkle for his birthday. I could just aim it like this at you.
It's weaponizing it.
It is weaponizing it. Yep. Weaponized glitter.
Already weaponized. Just existing.
It's existing, yes. Renee's not a fan of glitter. So there is our little guy, so cute. He will go out into the garage. We'll give him a couple of light coats of decor matte spray just to seal everything in nice and tight. And he'll be ready to decorate a table or a countertop, just a cute little stand type thing for the holidays and for the winter. He's a super easy piece to paint. Lots of fun. And you can do so much with stencils. Now, I used a swirly in the background. You could use snowflakes. You could use whatever you want. And as you can see, you don't need to have something traditionally winter to create a winter look. So swirly stencils, polka dot stencils, knit stencils, even some lettering stencils. You can have a whole lot of fun with this little snowman. Super easy to do and a lot of fun to paint. Ta-da! I love snowmen. Are always so happy. Snowmen are happy. Don't you think?
I wouldn't be happy.
Why?
If I'm left outside to freeze.
You're made of snow. You're already frozen.
Nope.
Oop.
He's talking to somebody.
Yeah, I think she's talking to Dad.
We have a wheel.
We do have a wheel, I hope. And everybody's on it.
Oh yeah,
And he was diligently working quietly and putting a whole string of names on there.
Let's give it a shot. Alright, we got 3 boxes.
We have 3 boxes to give away. I'll just quickly go over what's in them. We have some wonderful goodies from Tombow USA. We have goodies from Dynasty Brush. There's black gold. There's faux squirrel. There's a bunch of goodies in there. And of course, we always have goodies that we provide for you. So there is a cute little create bag and a bunch of other fun stuff. Plus, I included a package of my lip balm. So you'll have something. You're all set for the winter now. So we have 3 of those to give away. And the first name is... I love this wheel thing. That's cool. How many names are on it today?
256.
Whoa. Kathleen Ruth. So, Kathleen, make sure you head over to the website at tracymoreau.net. Click on the little speech bubble in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send us your shipping information so that we can get your goodies out to you as soon as possible.
Kathleen Ruth.
Anything that is unclaimed, we keep it for a week. If you don't let us know within a week, it goes back into the bin and we use it for future drawings. And don't forget, we also have the 12 Days of Christmas coming up sooner than you think. Next Saturday, we are painting the second in the Peony series. So, Elizabeth, right on. If you're not familiar with the Peony series, it is called Peony in Gold. This is the second one in that series. It uses some interesting things, some stencils, of course, to create an elegant background and a very pretty floral. We're going to be using shades of mauve and purples for this one. So it's a fun one. Winner of this one is Elizabeth. And the last one goes to... Ta-da!
Elizabeth. And...
Oh, nice! Lynn Poinako. Awesome.
I recognize that name. I've seen it in the chat.
Oh, yeah, she's been around. Lynn's been around for a while. Awesome. So join us here next Saturday. We're going to be painting that second in the series. Pattern for that will be up tomorrow afternoon, barring any further issues with the with the website. I had a hell of a time getting the pattern for this week's up. Yeah, so we're going to be working on a floral, doing an elegant looking floral. It's on a black background, 8 by 10. So if you've got a black canvas or an 8 by 10 canvas kicking around, you're already halfway there. So come and join us. Same time, same bat channel. We're here every Saturday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Come and join us, paint, and maybe get your name on the wheel. You could win some really awesome goodies from some really awesome companies. And I think that is it. Thanks so much for joining us here every Saturday. We appreciate you. Everybody have a great weekend. Mwah. We love you. Stay safe.
And bet your dog. Kinda creepy.
Pet your dog.
That was a creepy way of doing it.
It was indeed.